This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel.
May, breakfast is ready.
Coming.
It's gonna be me. Is everything okay?
I'm a gross red monster. Don't look at me. Stay back.
This happened already?
What did you say?
That's from Disney Pixar's animated film Turning Red, about a lot of topics, including puberty. The film also tackles the topic of menstruation, still considered a taboo topic by some, but not as taboo as menopause. In fact, 95% of the therapeutic market is geared toward puberty and fertility, and just 5% toward menopause. Coming up Where We Live, we talk about new scientific research about menopause, a transition period for women beginning in midlife and involving 3 stages. And later, we learn about technology that can help give women the data to back up their experiences when talking to their doctor about symptoms and potential treatments. Now, do you have questions about menopause? You can join us too, 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR, or you can share a comment on our Facebook page or find us on Twitter at Where We Live. Now, 3 out of 4 women who seek help for menopausal symptoms don't receive it, according to the AARP. So what can help women have better access to information, treatment, and care? That's where a menopause doula comes in. Joining us now on Zoom is Nathalie Bonafe, a menopause doula, and she's founder of Cafe Menopause, as well as a member of the North American Menopause Society. Nathalie, welcome to our show.
Good morning, Lucy. Good morning. Thank you.
Now, many of our listeners have heard of doulas, but I described you as a menopause doula. So tell me about this role that you have taken on and when women are reaching out to you.
Well, Lucy, it's a little bit of a long story. It really started with being actually reaching the glass ceiling in the company I was working with before in my mid to late 40s. Which coincided with the beginning of the menopause transition, which is the very beginning, in my case, of the perimenopause stage that we might want to talk later about. And because it coincided with that stage, I really had to work very hard to come out of the situation, that vacuum. It was very different from what I had experienced before. It was very different from the puberty, although it was very different from the 20s and the 30s. It was actually closer to what I could feel at puberty. You know, the brain fog, the excitement, the fatigue at the same time, and also, the feeling lost. This was very interesting, but I was at that time just focusing on finding, my next adventure for work. And it kind of crystallized together. During that period of reconversion, I was a biomedical research scientist for 20 years. And so that is part of me. During the work that I've done afterwards, I really, became a woman in business. And I started putting things together, and I became more of a women's advocate. In times of physical change, I also care for women at the end of life. Mm-hmm. And because I'm an end-of-life doula and trained and certified, in addition to being a scientist, it made the most sense for me to incorporate the menopause transition part of life that is so important, is going to determine how we age, how we go from being active, productive, even having children to really thrive and make a difference in this society.
And so, Nathalie, when women who are experiencing menopause reach out to you as a menopause doula, what do you do for them?
Well, it really depends what they want. And that's what we try to figure out. What is it that they want? And every woman is going to be unique. They usually come to me because of various reasons. They usually have very weird physical and emotional symptoms, the fatigue, the insomnia, the strained relationships. They can sometimes have fear of death, and they really lose their confidence, and they really don't know where to start. They don't understand that this is all kind of connected. And they also share, so what I do really for them is first I listen to them. I listen to their entire story. So I validate them. And because in general, there is no safe space to discuss this without taboo, without being made fun of. So I listen to them, and as a scientist, I also help them understand how their body works and what could be happening at the molecular and cellular biochemical level. And then in the third phase, I really help them gain confidence so they can advocate for themselves and with the healthcare system. So it's really a catalytic process, and everybody wins.
I mentioned that you're a founder of Cafe Menopause here in Connecticut, modeled after similar menopause cafes in the UK. And we understand also the UK has workplace policies around menopause. So tell me about your efforts to get organizations in the New Haven area to think about policy and spaces for menopausal employees, Nathalie.
So Lucy, this is a newer part of my work. I think it was very difficult during the pandemic to offer, menopause in the workplace workshops to companies, including, hospitals, healthcare organizations, nursing homes, assisted living. It's very hard, and I'm very close to New York City, so we can also reach bigger companies. So it was very challenging. So I'm really starting now to dust it off and to offer it to other people. And it's very slow. It's very slow because people don't realize what menopause is. So the more we talk about it, the more we talk about the challenges for women over 40, sometimes younger, but I would say the majority of the female workplace from 40, and it could last until the 60s, 70s, especially if some things have not been addressed at midlife.
You mentioned that age range from the 40s until maybe even the 60s and 70s. I had mentioned the 3 stages of menopause. Can you briefly go over those with us, Nathalie?
Sure. So there would be, when people talk about menopause, they think it's going to be the one day they haven't had their periods for 1 year. And 1 year and 1 day. And that's it, that they really are not able to have babies anymore. But actually, it's really not just the end of our reproductive years. So the years that lead to that menopause day are called perimenopause. They can last, a year, 2 years, 10 years. I think they vary. Some women will go through menopause without noticing it, but others will have the most horrific experiences based on their genetics, their epigenetics, based on where they live, the past experiences. So it really varies, but I see that play during that perimenopause time. The menopause is really the one day we have not had our periods for a year and 1 day. And after that, it's the postmenopause. So where does it end? People can tell me. It depends. People will go back to normal. But what I'm noticing is that there is really no normal if there has not been accompaniment and sometimes treatment at menopause to palliate to the sudden decrease of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone.
Coming up, we're going to talk more about symptoms that women experience and also potential treatments with a certified OBGYN through the North American Menopause Society. With me right now is Nathalie Bonafe, a menopause doula and founder of Cafe Menopause. Now, if you have a question, you can join us 888-720-9677 or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. I wanted to quote from a 2018 article that was in the AARP, the magazine. Philip Serrell, who's Professor Emeritus of Obstetrics, Gynecology, and Reproductive Services at the Yale School of Medicine. The quote was from Philip, "Doctors are not helpful. They haven't had training. They're not up to date." So, Nathalie, what kind of training do OBGYNs need to be better qualified to care for women in these 3 stages you just outlined?
So what do they need? They really need to learn to listen to women. So that is actually a training on its own. They also need to really look at women as a whole. And, their past, their present, their fears, and not just their genetic background, because this gets into play. They also need to know the new policies. They need to update their knowledge on what the science has told us about the Women's Health Initiative studies that were done and released, 20 years ago that a lot of providers still refer to. 20 years of research is a long time. We have learned a lot about bioidentical hormones. We have learned a lot about what could potentially interfere with, some diseases. But we also know more about the benefits of treatments to help women go over that hump emotionally and physically and keep them healthy longer. We need that form of education, and I think it would be easier for the providers if there were more research studies, for women of all backgrounds, because the problem is we don't have enough data, and the physicians will function based on clinical trial results and data. So we need this, and we need them to report what they also see in the office, one way or the other.
And we'll be talking about some of that new data out about menopause. Again, my guest, Nathalie Bonafe, a menopause doula, founder of Cafe Menopause here in Connecticut and a member of the North American Menopause Society. We'll be hearing from a certified OBGYN right after the break, and we'll take your questions too. All about menopause, 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR, or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. Now, as we head into the break, here's audio from Menopause the Musical, coming to the Palace Theater in Stamford in April.
For 5 long years, I thought I'm losing my mind. But I found out, no, it's just a part of the change. Signs weren't too cool. It's treating me mean, yeah. Change.
This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. About a year ago, I talked to Dr. Jen Gunter, who wrote the Menopause Manifesto, and her example of how women would rate menopause on Yelp has stuck with me to this day. Quote, "This establishment has temperature control issues, drenching heat followed by terrible chills, defies the laws of thermodynamics, would not recommend." And we know there are plenty of movies and TV shows that reference this time in a woman's midlife. This is what Jack Nicholson tells a menopausal Diane Keaton in the movie Something's Gotta Give.
Ever been married, Harry?
No.
No, I haven't.
Harry was once engaged to Diane Sawyer.
I love her. I'm impressed.
Yeah. Women your age love that about me.
Now, putting comedy aside, there's new scientific research on menopause, its effects on women, and treatment options. Joining us now on the phone is Dr. Melissa Pearlstone, an accredited OBGYN with Women's Health CT. She's a certified practitioner with the North American Menopause Society. Dr. Pearlstone, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I didn't realize there was a North American Menopause Society. So tell us what this means for patients when they're seeking out care.
Yeah, I think that's something important for patients to know about. Those of us who are members of the society, and I'd say in particular those of us who are certified, are physicians and nurse practitioners who have taken a particular interest in menopause and the treatment of menopause. And when you're a patient, ideally seeing a provider who takes special interest in your issue, hopefully has set aside the time to talk to you about your experience and who's knowledgeable about treatment options is obviously essential.
We heard Nathalie Bonafe share earlier, we learn so much in our lives about puberty and fertility, and then there's menopause, and women often don't know a lot about this time in our lives that can start, as she mentioned, in our 40s and can go all the way to our mid-60s or so. And so I'm wondering if you can add to that these three stages, and when you're talking with women, what do they know about menopause, and where do you fit in helping them help them with the symptoms and the potential treatments available?
So I think that accessing information about menopause is a really important issue to discuss. I would say oftentimes when I see patients, their source of information is either going to be friends and family, which of course is natural, but I don't know that that's necessarily the best source of information. And then, of course, we all have access to the internet nowadays, which can be, I often say, a blessing and a curse. So there's a lot of, unfortunately, I feel like there's a lot of misinformation available to women about menopause and in particular treatments that are available and which treatments are safe and effective.
I'd mentioned some new studies that have come out. There's one in February of this year published in the journal Menopause, linking menopausal joint pain to sleep apnea. There was another study in 2020 in the journal Neurology that found women in midlife had 30% more Alzheimer's-related plaques than men of the same age. They also had lower brain glucose metabolism, meaning lower energy levels in the brain, more brain shrinkage, and these biomarkers were associated with menopause. And so bringing all of that up, when we think about how OBGYNs should be talking about risks and, should treatment to women be offered much earlier, Dr. Pearlstone?
So the last part, tell me again.
Oh, when we think about all of these different studies, when we think about some of the risks that are related to this period in one's life, should certain treatments to women be offered much earlier?
Right. Well, so I think what needs to be teased out with that kind of question is what are the risks that are associated with menopause per se, and what are the risks that are just related to general aging? So that general concepts in terms of keeping ourselves healthy as we get older, exercising, not drinking too much alcohol, not smoking, maintaining a normal blood pressure, normal blood sugar levels, normal cholesterol levels, all of these things have shown to improve health and longevity. As concerns menopause per se, the data is unclear, quite frankly, as to whether treatment, and now I'm talking about medication, to treat menopause results in longer health and lifespan. That's less clear. And in general, treatment of menopausal symptoms is geared towards relief of symptoms as opposed to prescription of medications in the name of promoting health and longevity.
Mm-hmm. When we hear about hormone replacement therapy, or HRT, can you talk about that with us, Dr. Pearlstone?
Yeah. I think the main, if I had one message I really wanted to share with the listeners about hormone replacement therapy, is that most women are under the misconception that the use of hormone replacement therapy carries significant risk. Many women are under the impression that this is a pretty dangerous intervention that should be generally avoided at all costs. And that's just a misperception of what the risks are. For an average risk patient, meaning somebody who's generally healthy and not smoking and without a significant past medical history, and a woman who is early in the menopause transition, as in less than 10 years from her last menstrual period, in general, the benefits of using hormone replacement therapy outweigh its risks. And unfortunately, because many women are under this false impression, a huge industry has built up catering to women who are too scared to use hormone replacement therapy, and so therefore are looking for alternatives that are marketed as safer, when in fact they may not in fact be any safer. And I think that really is a shame.
Oh, before we take a question from a listener, Dr. Pearlstone, when we talk about hormone replacement therapy, you mentioned there's a lot of misperceptions out there. And so talk through with us what exactly happens during menopause that would lead women to need this particular type of treatment. I'm thinking about, how much does estrogen drop and the impacts on a woman's body?
Right. So the primary indication for the use of hormone replacement therapy is for the treatment of hot flashes and night sweats. So approximately 80% of women will notice a hot flash or a night sweat as she transitions through to menopause, but it's actually only a minority, about 20 to 25%, who find that their symptoms are intolerable enough that they seek out treatment.
You were talking earlier about the fear and misperceptions of hormone replacement therapy lead women to often try these over-the-counter or non-FDA regulated treatments. We got a question from Twitter, a woman who suffers from hot flashes terribly, she writes, tried natural root, but it is not working. And then I think she writes here, black cohosh, progesterone cream, etc. help. What can you tell us about what she shared and from in your view as a certified practitioner in this?
Yeah. So I'd say a couple of comments I think are really great. Some of what this woman has written are great examples of what I come across on a daily basis. So first, this concept of natural. This is something that the lay public is drawn to, this idea that something is natural and so therefore it's safe, and something that's synthetic must therefore be unsafe. I mean, this is just not a scientific concept. There are naturally occurring poisons, and so something that's natural is just not a scientific term. In terms of alternative therapies like black cohosh, for example, or topical progesterone, when studies are conducted looking at various interventions, products, over-the-counter treatments, etc., in the treatment and for relief of menopausal symptoms, a well-done study is always going to have a placebo group to be able to compare their results to. And as it turns out, in most of these kind of studies, what is pretty much standard is the placebo group, 40% of the placebo group will notice an improvement. So that if you're going to actually prove that your product is effective, you have to surpass a 40% improvement. That having been said, there is some data to support the efficacy of black cohosh for some women, and certainly if I see a patient who is taking black cohosh and finds that her symptoms are relieved, well then, in general, she would be encouraged to continue using it.
You're hearing Dr. Melissa Pearlstone here on Where We Live. She's an OBGYN with Women's Health CT and a certified practitioner with the North American Menopause Society. As we talk about menopause, if you have a question or want to share your experience, 888-720-9677, or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. So we talked about hormone replacement therapy. What about something selective estrogen receptor modulators, also known as SERMs? Are they a better option, Dr. Pearlstone?
I don't know that I would say they're a better option. I mean, certainly in terms of relief of symptoms, nothing works like estrogen. In fact, I tell my patients, if we can't eventually find the right dose or form of estrogen to give you satisfactory relief of your symptoms, then I need to start looking for a new diagnosis because it just doesn't make sense. Estrogen always works. I don't know that I could say the same for the SSRIs, and these are medications that many of your listeners have heard of, like Paxil, Prozac, Lexapro. So these drugs are also used to treat menopausal symptoms, and they have been shown to be superior to placebo. However, their efficacy is just not as significant as estrogen is. But these are options for women who either have medical contraindications to the use of estrogen. The most common and largest group would be women who have been diagnosed with hormone-sensitive breast cancer. But there are other women, for example, women who have experienced blood clots in the past, like blood clots in their veins or pulmonary embolism. These represent also relative contraindications to the use of estrogen. So many of these women are symptomatic and are looking for relief of their symptoms, and use of a medication like Paxil or Lexapro can be effective.
Nathalie Bonafe is still with us. Again, she's a menopause doula and also a member of the North American Menopause Society. Nathalie, I wanted to get your take on what Dr. Pearlstone has shared so far. And again, a lot of people have questions about hormone replacement therapy. You know, how do you talk about that with women that you're helping?
Well, Lucy, I totally agree with Pearlstone. I think, she explained very well the type of solutions that they are for women, medical solutions. So how do I help women, go to their provider and discuss this? Is I really inform them on what happens at the molecular level. What happens when we stop losing, estrogen, and nothing works better than estrogen. Estrogen protects us and keeps us strong and alert. And what else do I tell them? I think I lost my I essentially give them what most physicians, providers don't have time to give them. The underlying story of what happens in their bodies. And then they can, because of that, think better about describing their symptoms that could be more subtle than the hot flashes that everybody talks about and sometimes make fun of. Could be hair loss, could be pain during intercourse, could be really anxiety, and this is really related. So if they understand that they need to be seen as a whole, they go to their providers equipped, prepared, emotionally prepared, and they get the help that they need. Does it make sense?
Yes. Again, you're hearing Nathalie Bonafe, a menopause doula, founder of Cafe Menopause. Nathalie, it's been a pleasure to hear from you today to talk about how you're helping women through this transition period. Again, we appreciate your time, and we'll have links on our website to learn more about Nathalie's work, ctpublic.org/wherewelive. Nathalie, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Also with us on the phone was Dr. Melissa Pearlstone, an OBGYN with Women's Health Connecticut, Women's Health CT, and she's a certified practitioner with the North American Menopause Society. Dr. Pearlstone, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're listening to Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. Coming up after the break, there's a $600 billion opportunity globally for the development of therapeutic products for menopausal women. After the break, we talk to a woman entrepreneur about that and her personal experience. You can join us too, 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR, or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. You're listening to Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. Now, the median age for menopause in the U.S. is 51 years old for white women, but black women and Latinas reach menopause 2 years earlier. That's according to the Study of Women's Health Across the Nation, or SWAN study. Research also shows Latinas and black women experience hot flashes and night sweats much longer than white women. And a new study published this month in the journal Menopause found that hormone therapy was less common among black women compared with white women. Also, Hispanic Latinx women had lower odds of prescribed menopause therapy. So how's the market addressing their needs? The Female Founders Fund reported that tech to manage menopausal symptoms is a $600 billion opportunity. To talk about that, joining us now on Zoom is Debbie Dickinson, co-founder and CEO of Thermaband Inc. Thermaband was incubated at Yale and is currently in the Harvard iLab and Harvard Alumni Accelerator program. Debbie, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me, Lucy. I'm so happy to be here.
You've got a really interesting story. First off, when we talk about menopause technology, I understand you got involved in this to partly address discrimination. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. I'm a lawyer by trade, practiced law for a number of years, had a number of entrepreneurial endeavors, and was actually in the process of, figuring out that at 51, okay, now what do I want to do with my life? Get back into the practice of law after taking a hiatus to raise my kids. And the stories, and then I had a hot flash. And I realized very quickly that I was not prepared, as so many women find themselves. And the solutions were very few in terms after purchasing everything I could find on the market. And we needed to really have that conversation, just as we were prepared for puberty, we need to be prepared for menopause. So, and recognizing that, there were so few solutions, and really wanting to have something, especially when I recognized that women of color were so disproportionately impacted relative to, it occurs earlier, or discomfort occurs earlier and lasts longer. And, we needed to really normalize that conversation and expand the solutions that are available.
You mentioned the discomfort begins earlier and lasts longer. I referenced that SWAN study, a study of women's health across the nation. So white women experience hot flashes, according to the study, for around 6.5 years. Latinas for nearly 9 years. For black women, 10 years. And as I mentioned earlier, black women are reaching menopause at 49, 2 years earlier than the national median age of 51. Female Founders Fund also saying that this is an area, menopause, that has seen little innovation, despite these considerable and long-lasting impacts that I mentioned, Debbie. So talk more about the market and how you and your daughter are innovating here.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Just in recognizing that there were not many tech solutions. And my story basically is, experiencing a hot flash. I mentioned purchasing everything on the market, found that I had a number of things that would work, frozen things, put this on your forehead, put this on your neck, put this on your wrist. But there was nothing that I felt comfortable using when I left home. So if I, was out in public and socializing and, in a business environment, there really was not that tech solution that not only provided a comfort in when confronted with thermal discomfort, right? So a hot flash or a cold flash, but also just as insights and understanding what's happening with the body. So, once we recognized that the tech solution didn't exist, started a community on Facebook, a multi-generational community to talk to or have women of different ages, because we also, to say that menopause for women of color is say mid-40s, that means perimenopause, which is, the time frame where often when a lot of the discomfort starts before, that mid-40, like say 45 or so. So many women are experiencing discomfort, and there are 34 symptoms of menopause, anxiety and, both emotional as well as physical. But night sweats and hot flashes and actually sleep disturbance are most prevalent. So to really have to have a solution, a subtle, discrete solution that can provide comfort and allow us to, navigate spaces very, very comfortably and be in control of that was something that we recognized was not available. And then through this community of women recognized that not only was there a need for comfort, but also information and insights relative to what's happening with their bodies.
You mentioned this online community. I understand there's nearly 1,500 women involved in this community, Debbie. And something you'd said about...
Actually, about 3,000 now.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes.
Even better. So when we think about what you said about needing solutions that are discreet and subtle, you can't bring that frozen bag of peas into the boardroom, right, when you're getting a hot flash. And so describe this particular product that you have, you and your daughter, Thermaband, how it works and how it helps women.
How it helps women. Yeah. What we recognized in women are ingenious. So we have, what we noticed is historically, folks, you mentioned the frozen bag of peas. We know if you put, you keep certain bags of peas, historically people would have certain things in their freezer, right? I had, frozen cloths and, just a number of things that I could whip out at home. But it's not as easy to do that or as comforting to do that in public. So it was really traveling and having a hot flash in a car when I said, gee, if I were home, I would be able to go to my freezer or go to, I was tethered to the freezer or tethered to the faucet, right? I could put my hands on the cold running water. I could, put something, something that I had frozen in the freezer. But what if I had a wearable? What if I had something that was so discreet that activated automatically, that gave me that same cool sensation that we realized had worked. Women were putting their hands on the granite countertop. We have women cooling sprays can work. Fans. Different people are doing frozen pearls. There are women who freeze their pearls and put it on their bracelet or on their arm as a bracelet or on their neck as a necklace. So we're doing very ingenious things. But where is the technological solution that provides that comfort with just introducing the cool or the warmth? And it was through this community where not only did these women want to have a tech solution, but also wanted to understand what was happening with their bodies. So in addition to the wearable itself, and it's a wrist wearable called the Zone, that also has an app that provides insight into what's happening with these events, in terms of the heating and cooling, the activation, the occurrences, how many hot flashes have I had and how long were they, and the intensity, the duration. But it's really equipping women with information so they can advocate. Because as you mentioned before, many women, 3/4 of the women are turned away when they head to their physicians to find solutions. A lot of physicians are not certified by NAMS, and I'm not trained in menopause. That is increasing, thankfully, because of that wonderful organization. But and because it's a natural season. Women want it as something of life, right? Menopause is a natural season of life. Now, we do know, in addition to natural menopause, which occurs at different ages for folks, is the surgical and the medical. So, women who have had hysterectomies and both their ovaries are removed often have hot flashes associated with that. We have also chemotherapy patients and folks who have had cancer survivors, so also experiencing hot flashes. And the number of reasons expand. So it's a lot of folks are experiencing thermal discomfort and looking for a solution. Even if they're doing HRT, it can supplement that, or perhaps they did that for a period of time, and now they're, it's not wise for them to continue with that. And now they're looking for another solution because often the hot flashes returns.
Right. You're hearing Debbie Dickinson here on Where We Live, co-founder and CEO of Thermaband. Again, this was incubated at Yale, as Debbie describes it, helping women manage their menopausal symptoms. But the tech there, the data, helping women communicate with their doctors about symptoms and improving communication when it comes to thinking about treatment options that are available. I wanted to take a quick call. Leslie is calling in from Mansfield. Leslie, what did you want to share?
Hi. Just to say a word about myself, I'm an emeritus professor of communication at the University of Connecticut, and I've been working for 3 years with the past president of NAMS, the current president of NAMS, and about 25 other menopause researchers. They came to me as a communication person to help them create a website, which we launched just this month. So this broadcast is very timely. The website is called mymenoplan.org, and it's funded by the National Institutes of Health. And it's a great resource for women to find out about different treatments, about the range of symptoms. There are tools on the website to help people assess where they are, what stage are they in, whether they should talk to their doctor about some of the mood symptoms or sleep disorder, and help with a bevy of symptoms. So we have about 14 categories of symptoms, 35 different categories of treatments are detailed on the website. All the information has been scientifically reviewed and is up to date. We have videos where they can learn about perspectives of other women. And some of the things that surprised me when I was working on this project is we know that many women feel that menopause is a natural process, and so they feel like they shouldn't go and get treatment. They don't want to take medications if possible. And on our website, we list a whole bunch of things that people can do on their own, or types of therapy that can help them that are short of meds. And we also have details about the different types of medications, how much they help, whether there's a difference in the efficacy of some of the drugs versus other kinds of drugs.
That's really helpful to know about this. So you said the website is mymenoplan.org, Leslie?
Correct. mymenoplan.org.
Great. And this is funded by the National Institutes of Health. Sounds like a great resource. Thank you so much, Leslie, for telling us about it. I wanted to get back to Debbie Dickinson. It's interesting to hear about this community, again, working to help women with information and access to treatment. You, Debbie, were one of 8 female founders listed in a Forbes article for developing menopause products with Thermaband. I'm wondering, when we talk a little bit about some of the personal experiences and what women of color experience, I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about that moment, that period when it started in your life, Debbie, and again how that led you to create Thermaband.
Absolutely, yes. I was 51 and had my first hot flash, and it was really it was startling. I was in the moment did not understand what was happening. I'm very healthy, and I knew something was happening with my body, but I was not prepared for it. I didn't understand what was happening. And I've since then spoken to other women who described that first hot flash and the shock of it. I have a friend who actually passed out when she was having her first hot flash in the presence of her son. And when he rushed over to try to revive her, she was on a tile floor, and she said, "No, leave me. Let me just lay here for a bit because the tile feels pretty good." But for me, recognizing, that something was happening, and then talking to other women. And I had one conversation with my stepmother, and she said, "Oh yeah, you're having a hot flash. That was a hot flash, and it'll last for about 10 years." And the nonchalance and the acceptance, and realizing that, there is a season that is so uncomfortable for many of us, that, we just kind of navigate often in isolation, don't have an opportunity to connect with other women. I connected with, that one person, and she mentioned the 10 years, but I connected with other women who didn't understand, couldn't relate, said, "I'm not there yet." When in fact, many of us are, but we just don't realize that, we might not be experiencing the hot flashes, but whether it's anxiety or mood disorder or vaginal dryness, or there are so many other things associated that we may be experiencing in perimenopause and just don't understand. So it was really a culmination of my discomfort, recognizing the prevalence, the few solutions, talking to my physician and understanding some options, but really realizing that we wanted something, and of course, chatting with other women as well, and forming this community. How can we kind of work together and come up with something that embodies the use of thermoregulation? And that was really, the introduction of that cool sensation or the warm sensation, and the mind-body, or the mind's ability to moderate the body's temperature and find comfort.
Well, it sounds like, again, a really important product to be available to women as they manage this time in their lives. Debbie, and is this something that's covered by insurance?
We're working on that. It should be, yes. We're looking at least relative to the cafeteria plan, and to be clear, this is still a product that we are finalizing in terms of development, to looking to hit the market later this year. So still in progress, but really excited about its potential.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking about it with us. Debbie Dickinson, again, co-founder and CEO of Thermaband Inc. And this, again, is you're working on this with your daughter. Did you want to mention her name for us, Debbie?
Absolutely. My co-founder is Markia Dickinson, and Markia actually has competencies and worked with supply chain and manufacturing at Unilever, and then was actually a Yale MBA student, interested in entrepreneurial endeavors, when she got a phone call from her mother saying, "Listen, we need to do something here. I can't take this."
I love this story. Thank you so much, Debbie, for, again, coming on the show. We really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. Today's show produced by Sujata Srinivasan. Tess Terrible was on the phones today. Our technical director is Kat Pastor. We'll be back tomorrow with another interesting show, this time on ASMR. We hope you join us.